What's up, guys? And we know you probably don't want to hear it, but here's the things that Dark Souls 2 done right.
Yeah, no, I think Dark Souls 2 gets a lot of slack.
And it shouldn't.
No, not slack, flack.
Yeah, and it really shouldn't get as much hate as it gets. Like, as soon as people mention Dark Souls 2, it's just shite, worst Dark Souls game, stuff like that.
That's not true, because Dark Souls 2 excels in a lot of different ways.
We're going to tell you 10 of them right now that Dark Souls 2 is better than Dark Souls 1 for the most part.
Yeah, so we'll get to part 1, or bit 1.
Well, point 1, of course, is Soul Vessels. Soul Vessels were a great little tool for PvP. It allowed you to erase mistakes in any build that you made in PvE as well. It allowed you to change your build to fit situations, and you didn't have to play the full game to play with a new build if you weren't happy with the build that you ended the game with.
Exactly. Now, I felt that in Dark Souls 1 I had to make so many new games just to make one new build, and then it could end up being absolute shit.
And then you'd have to start over.
So, at the very least, Soul Vessels just takes that out of the game, and it lets me actually enjoy the single player experience when I want to play it, as opposed to having to play it and grind through it just to make a new build.
And without a doubt, it definitely increased the lifespan of the game's PvP,
Oh,
because you allowed players to just do whatever they liked immediately. If they didn't want to play a faith build anymore, if they want to play a dex build, go to the very start of the game, change your stats, done, you're now a dex build, now you can just go get the weapons that you want, that's you. Your PvP, it's just a continuous flow of PvP for those that don't want the PvE.
Thanks, B-Team.
Yeah, thanks, B-Team. And point number 2 is the arena.
Yeah, so kind of linked to the PvP points, but the fact that it gave you an arena and Demon Souls didn't, Bloodborne didn't,
Dark Souls did in the DLC,
but because it was in the DLC, no one fucking used it.
and it died very quickly. Nobody's in it anymore.
I mean, the arena for Dark Souls 1 is better, don't get us wrong, but at the very least, Dark Souls 2 gave us an arena, and
Everyone could access it pretty easily.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like I said, it is a bit flawed, you only get one life, yada yada, but at the same time, again, because Soul Memory fucked up so many aspects of the game, at the very least the arena meant that you could always have PvP if you wanted it.
Yeah, there is partial soul level matchmaking, and I like the fact that it's partial for one reason, and that is that if you want to play a meta, then sure, go to 150, you'll fight people in the arena around about 150, but if you don't get a connection with someone at 150, it then just matches you up with anyone in the arena, and what that does is, yeah, you might not get the guy at 150 that you wanted, but at least you've got PvP, and if you come out on top of a level fucking 400 Havel monster, you're going to feel really good about it.
Yeah, so I mean, frankly...
Pros and cons with like everything to do with the arena, of course, but I think overall it's better.
Yeah, so, arena, absolutely great thing.
A-okay by me, B-Team. Next point, content. Without a doubt, the content in Dark Souls 2 far exceeds the amount that's in Dark Souls 1, Demon Souls, and Bloodborne. There are...
Possibly combined.
Maybe not combined. In fact, yeah, maybe if you take duplicates out, because Dark Souls 2 has so many weapons.
Yeah.
So many armors, so many different shields and casting tools. It's just built on what Dark Souls 1 did, but it just like quadrupled the amount of shit in the game that you can choose from.
Not only that, a lot of the stuff is actually good. Like, most of it's actually fairly usable.
Yeah, not a lot of it's garbage.
There's like every weapon for every kind of fucking playstyle that you want.
Within weapon subcategories, there's little changes that makes the weapons better for different situations.
With slight move sets, like one weapon.
The Fume Sword having an R2 poke and the Long Sword having like a little running swipe for an R2.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff like that. Just little changes inside each individual weapon subcategory as well just adds to the amount of content.
The bad thing about that is though, is it's raised the bar so fucking high for Dark Souls 3 that if it doesn't have at least as much content, I'm actually going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I would like it as much or close to as much, definitely more than Dark Souls 1 and a shitload more than Bloodborne.
Yeah. The actual base game itself has a crazy length, and when you combine the DLCs into it as well, the amount of actual gameplay and areas in the game is more than Dark Souls 1 as well, so you've got a lot of hours in terms of even single player in the game.
Yeah, definitely. And then with PvP as well, with the amount of variety that you've got, so much to go on. And of course, the next point to bring up is Fashion Souls. This game has so many armors in it, and a lot of different combinations work well with each other. And
yeah, they all have little flappy bits.
Yeah, the cloth physics in this game are amazing. Like the cloth physics on the black robes and the the Lydia stuff, and it's just really nice. The capes in the game work really well. It's all very good. It's a little lacking on good like metal helmets. But aside from that, it's workable. There's a lot of very good fashion in the game, as well as the addition of the living ring, so that you can keep your fashion souls going without the tint of like being a red summon or a white or a gold summon or a blue summon. You wouldn't have that tint there, so that your fashion is maximized.
They knew what people wanted, and they gave us it.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely it. And if you want to see some fashion, then you should watch our video. Just love this shameful self plug. But we done a top 10 fashion souls video. You guys should check that out if you haven't seen it already.
Yeah, so thanks, best team. So the next point we've got is actually the critical mechanics. Now this, you could argue, isn't that just part of PvP or whatever?
Just before we go into the things we like about the critical mechanics, I want to mention the one thing that we don't like about the critical mechanics, and that is the riposte window being so fucking unimaginably long. I really dislike that, but let's get on to the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, everything else is great. The fact that all the shields have their own sort of specific parry frames and wind-ups mean that you need to get a feel for whatever it is that you're using.
The weapons too have different parry frames.
I mean, the fact that
you can guard break.
Backstab's been the main thing, honestly.
Yeah, the main thing. The fact that they removed instant backstabs is absolutely brilliant. I love it.
Which ends up meaning, and before anyone says, oh no, backstabs increased the skill scene in the Dark Souls 1, no it didn't.
It just allowed lag to be more prominent, and it basically, backstab was the one move that you would go to for any situation and it would work out in your favour regardless of what it did.
Yeah. It
was too strong.
But the non-instant backstabs ends up being a bit of a lag compensator, which is good because it just means that everybody can actually just enjoy a fucking game as opposed to, oh cool, I got backstabbed, yeah, of course I got backstabbed, with a hornet ring, of course.
Yeah, at least with that little startup animation, if it is a bad connection, you are more likely to avoid being lag stabbed.
Yeah.
It still happens, but
way less.
Yeah, guarantee it. Dark Souls 1, if you play Dark Souls 1 today, someone is going to try and backstab you in every single fucking fight. I guarantee it. 100% guarantee it.
So, another great thing is stats. There's no useless stats in this game. Now, even Bloodborne has a useless stat with Arcane. Might change in the DLC. We'll see.
Might.
Demon Souls had luck. Fucking Dark Souls 1 had resistance.
Luck wasn't useless, it was just insanely limited because it only worked with one weapon.
Yeah. So, really, every stat feels like it actually has a purpose in Dark Souls 2. The fact that they took away equipment weight from endurance was the best thing, literally the best thing about the entire game.
Yeah. Because it gives light builds their advantage that they don't have against heavy builds.
And as much as I think the adaptability could be worked around a little bit differently, it was still a useful stat. It still done things and you felt the difference from it.
Adaptability the least though, because it went up in stages. It was like every so many points you would get it. But for the rest of the stats, for the most part, you felt like gradual benefit from gradual investment. Like you invest 3 levels in health and you feel that. But adaptability was the one where you could invest like 4 levels and get nothing out of.
I mean, another thing is that also, you never felt like investing points into intelligence or faith was really wasted, because if you've if you've infused your weapon anyway, you'll get scaling damage off of that as well. So really it meant that investing in any of your stats is, you're almost going to see at least some kind of positive benefit from it.
Yeah. Alright, and our next point, the user interface being just a complete improvement over Dark Souls 1 and still over Bloodborne, yeah, even though Bloodborne came out later. The tiled menu is just better than the list menu. It's far easier to navigate, it's far more user-friendly as well, because you can choose to look at more information if you want to, like Dark Souls 2, you just tap the square button, boom, more information about what you're looking at. But in Bloodborne, the list, it doesn't feel as good.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Especially the fact that it shows you your equipment weight as a percentage as well, which is great to just have that information there.
Yeah, that was annoying to work out in Dark Souls 1, having to pull up the fucking calculator and divide your max weight by 4 to work out what 25% was. It's nice that it displays that, as well as multiple item use. You can use multiple items. You can pop 5 soul packets at a time, and it won't take you out the menu.
And exactly. And a little character preview to see what your character looks like with the armor on. So it made fashion souls even better that way. So.
Yeah, because then you could constantly change your fashion without exiting the menu, like you had to in Dark Souls 1 and in Bloodborne and in Demon Souls.
Exactly.
Good. So yeah, we like the user interface. It's not perfect, but it's definitely better.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the better interfaces for most games, really, actually. It's pretty decent.
I mean, as long as they're doing better than Demon Souls, they're improving, let's be honest.
So another great thing about Dark Souls 2 was dual wielding is actually, maybe not necessarily viable, but actually works at the very least.
It's viable. There are some good combinations. Like you can dual wield like rapier and longsword, and it's very fucking good.
Oh yeah, I suppose so. I mean,
not necessarily just weapons that combine to give you a new moveset, but weapons that work well with each other, like a scythe and a dagger works well. A spear and a longsword works well. Shit like that. Dual wielding was more prominent.
I mean, the great thing
and it worked better.
The great thing about dual wielding is that it was balanced. It also meant that you could get different combinations with certain weapons would give you a unique attack.
Yeah, like the warp sword Spinneroonie.
Exactly, the curved nail greatsword.
Yeah, you mix the curved nail greatsword with the smelter sword, and you turn into a flaming Beyblade.
It's amazing.
It was fun.
It was actually, like you said, it's viable in PvP because you get weapons that work well with each other.
Yeah, in Dark Souls 1, your left-hand weapon had one attack or a block, and it had a parry or also a block. That's what your left-hand weapons did in Dark Souls 1. It wasn't great, but at least in Dark Souls 2 it functions a lot better. And plus with the ability to two-hand your left-handed weapon now as well, it just expands the moveset to a whole new horizon for dual wielding as well. It makes it far more usable.
So yeah, dual wielding.
Alright, so this one is probably going to offend more of you than the better than 18 thing that I said at the last point.
However, a lot of you will probably agree.
Yeah, and I hope you do, because when you look at it fundamentally, we're right. The PvP in Dark Souls 2 is better. It's just more fluid, it's more fun than Dark Souls 1. Yeah, it's not as fast, but the connections are a lot better. There's just a lot of little things to PvP that add up and make it really good, like the variety of builds. You've got 4 different ring slots that you can work with. The combat's slower, yeah, but it causes you to think about it, and it causes you to think about what they're going to do to react and stuff like that as well. We already mentioned the no instant backstabs in the arena,
which just improve it so much, because it means you're not just going in and getting instantly one-shotted. I mean, that used to be the case, maybe, but they've balanced the game a lot more now. So
yeah, like they removed the infinite stun locks. There's still some guaranteed damage stuff that sucks, but that's just unavoidable because of the way that that moveset is created. What else have we got? Omnidirectional rolling in PvP is fantastic. In Dark Souls 1, you only had the 4-directional rolling, forward, back, left, and right. But in Dark Souls 2, you've got diagonals that you can roll as well. You actually get more control.
Yeah, you have a great sense of control over your character.
And if you get really good at movement in Dark Souls 2, you pretty much won't get hit. I barely get hit in PvP now just because I've learned how to move the character properly in the game. It's really good. There's just a lot more that you can do with Dark Souls 2 PvP instead of Dark Souls 1.
Yeah, with Dark Souls 1, to be good at PvP, you kind of either had to go right. Well,
you had to use exploits, like you had to know ways to get out of exploits as well. You had to figure out how to get rid of chain stabbing. You had to learn how to toggle to get rid of unfair stun locks when you didn't use poise.
Yeah. There
was so many things that you had to learn how to do. You had to learn how to defend backstabs.
And people say that this is a good thing, that it made the game, like, you know, it raised the skill ceiling, but all it did was just mean that if these people just didn't know how to do this, which if you're not specifically looking up how to do these things, you're gonna get fucking killed with exploits, or you just use the Great Scythe and win regardless.
Or you just use a buffed large club and not actually swing it once, just backstab them. That's how you play Dark Souls 1 PvP. You just buff a large club with your Hornet Ring and backstab them. Great club, sorry, the one that's shit.
Yeah.
Because it does so much damage that you literally don't have to swing it, you just backstab them, poise through their attack and backstab them. But you don't get that in Dark Souls 2 because the PvP is deeper. It's more, I mean, poise isn't there as much, but it's just
overall
less.
the pros
There's fewer exploits in Dark Souls 2 than there are in Dark Souls 1.
The pros outweigh the cons, in our opinion.
In our opinion.
That way you can't say anything.
In our opinion,
can't talk shit now.
Our opinion technically should be your opinion, but we're tolerable people, so we'll allow you to have your opinion.
So, last and probably least, but the DLCs...
Yeah, I wouldn't say least. I think this is a good addition for those of us who don't play PvP.
Right, the DLCs added so much fucking content to the game, and the content was fantastic. Some of
At the very least, each DLC was the size of Dark Souls 1's. At the very least, and it had way more content than the Dark Souls 1 DLC. Each individual DLC had more content than the Dark Souls 1 DLC.
They all added up to a really great experience, because they're all part of its own little story as well, which is really cool. And then... like, the boss fights were great.
They were the only good boss fights in the game besides Dark Lurker.
Yeah, essentially, and
DLCs,
the level design for each of the DLCs was fantastic.
And don't get me wrong, some of the boss fights are okay, like Mirror Knight's an alright fight and stuff like that. But Dark Lurker was the one standout from the main game, but then the DLCs just add to that with bosses like Fume Knight and fucking Blue Smelter, although most of you hate him, I fucking love Blue Smelter.
Blue Smelter is amazing on a mechanical level.
I love the fact that Blue Smelter can change up his timing. I love that, that's so cool.
So
every boss should have that, because it keeps you on your toes.
Exactly. So, I mean, really, the DLCs, the areas themselves, are some of the best areas in all of Souls games, easily comparable, in our opinion, in my opinion anyway, to Latria. Latria is the best area, but the DLCs are actually almost as good.
I really liked the layout and design of Shulva. Obviously, before anyone mentions it, we don't include the Frigid Outskirts in the DLC because we just don't include the Frigid Outskirts in Dark Souls 2, because including it in Dark Souls 2 would mean that I would hate Dark Souls 2 entirely. Yeah. So I can't do that, so I'm sorry. But the actual DLCs themselves, like all the areas were really good. Massive, unique places. Yeah, I think much better than the base game. Much better than the base game in terms of level design, bosses, much better than the base game, a huge improvement. Yeah. Wish it was in the main game in the first place, because it would have sold way better if it was. It would have been received way better as well. Yeah. But... them's the breaks. And that's our 10 things that we like about Dark Souls 2.
10 pretty good things. I'd say that these are all really, like, each thing is like, oh, that's a good thing.
I mean, we hope we've at least presented this in an objective way where we're not putting our opinion behind it too much in a sense that it's just really biased. Yeah. Like, hopefully you guys see what we're saying, where it's like the tile-based menus are better than list-based because it's easier to navigate in most instances and stuff like that. And of course, let us know what you guys think. Let us know if there's anything that you disagree with on the list, because I'm sure some of you do. You probably disagree a lot with the B better than A team sort of stuff.
Talk shit if you want, fuck it.
Yeah, talk shit, get hit, motherfucker. But yeah, let us know what things you like about Dark Souls 2, or if you just fucking hate it. Sure, let us know that. If that helps you, then...
tell us why you hate it so much. Okay, sure, it's lacking in atmosphere, but it makes up for a lot of different ways.
That's fine. Just wait for the 10 things Dark Souls 1 done wrong video.
Just wait.
But yeah, that's it, guys. Remember, watch our Fashion Souls video, by the way. We mentioned it earlier in the video. Go ahead and watch that. That's a good video.
Yeah.
That's good. But that's about it for the 10 things that Dark Souls 1 did, the Dark Souls 2 done right.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.